All right, so that wasn't the greatest example, but none of my examples are the greatest examples. Maybe one day I'll actually do a really cool example that I'm actually happy with. But you get the idea. I mean, it's the whole point is you're trying to insert what essentially is a lick that you learned, but in a way where it doesn't sound like a lick. So there's really no start or end. You kind of work into it without actually stopping your improvising idea, inserting lick, stopping in inserted lick, and then starting to improvise. You want to kind of really smoothly and seamlessly work in and out of that. And it takes some time and some work, and you really have to be conscious about it. Otherwise, licks are a very challenging thing. I mean, they can easily sound like licks that you learned you just inserted. So the goal is to try not to sound like that. With that being said, let's move on to the second lick that we're going to try and insert. This is a smaller idea, basically, and it's more of a concept than the first idea that we just did was more of a lick. It was... and then maybe going down chromatically. But that was kind of a long, notey kind of thing. This next idea we're going to do is... it's the arpeggio section. So as he goes down this thing... that little idea right there. If you break down what's going on there, it's really going down a C major arpeggio, so with this note in there, which is really your 11th or your 4th, so it's almost like a major with a sus4, so there's your major arpeggio, right? Then it goes down this little thing, which is really just barring these two notes and walking down chromatically in a line. Well, the cool thing about that is that throws in some notes that sound a little bit out. And what you can do is, like, again, let's take in E minor pentatonic. If you take that idea and you do an E major arpeggio, because these two notes are an E minor pentatonic, right? You're barring the 12th fret. This note is your major third, which you can always use in a blues sense. Right? That major minor third thing works. So that major third's not too far out. So, and this note here is in the pentatonic scale. So the only note that's not in there is that major third, right? So now this note, you don't tend to play in the, it's your minor 6. You don't tend to play that note in your minor pentatonic thing. You may use that, the major 6th, right? To bend up and down. Right? But you don't tend to play... It's just something that you might like, but it's not typical. So, when you go to that note, it sounds a little bit out. And then there's that major third again. There's the minor third. And then you go to that note, which is the 9th, right? And the 9th works in that scale. Right? All that works. It's just that one note, that minor 6, that kind of sounds a little off. But it makes a cool phrase. So if you have, say you have you're just doing, again, an improv in E minor pentatonic. Right? That works. And what you try and do, again, I'll try and do it, is work in and out of it. So you have... So, again, that wasn't the greatest thing in the world. One of these days, I'll get the greatest phrase. But you see the idea where you're throwing in, you're thinking about an arpeggio and a chromatic idea. Right? You're just inserting that in between there. And now start thinking that in different terms, where here's a major arpeggio, and then you're using this chromatic thing. Again, instead of thinking of that specific lick, just start thinking about maybe throwing in that arpeggio and then doing a chromatic idea, where, here, throw in this arpeggio. You can always throw that. Those are the notes of E minor pentatonic with a ninth in it, right? And that's really just a D major arpeggio. But start doing maybe... That was the same concept. You're going down a D major arpeggio. Then you're doing this barring thing. And then you're walking chromatically. Now that gives you, in E minor, that gives you your flat 5, right? Your 4, your major third. And you don't really want to land on a major third unless you're in a dominant blues. So if you land on the minor third, it works. So you have... And then it's just really a chromatic walk-down thing. Again, not the greatest, most brilliant ideas, but you get the concept. You're doing an arpeggio and then a little chromatic idea, which stems from this lick that you just learned. Now the next and last idea of this whole thing, which I didn't think I was going to get into this long-winded thing, but when he does these chromatic walk-downs where it's that's a cool little device to get you into a different position in the neck. It's kind of like an idea that I talked about with Alan Hinds once, where he was doing... He does that kind of thing, where it's 6th intervals, and he just walks them down. Right? So this is the same concept. Now, if you use that in your minor pentatonic, again, E minor pentatonic, if you're playing... Now that's doing this stretch, where it's 2 frets apart. Well, when Guthrie does it, it's 3 frets apart. So it's... Right? So you could do that here, too. You can do... so you have... Right? And you're just walking that down. Now, again, this is something where it's the concept that I'm giving you. Out of this whole thing, those are the 3 little ideas that I took out of it. Take those little concepts and try and work those into your solos. And just experiment. And just take a half hour and work with a metronome and really work slowly with doing these things. And really specifically say, I'm just going to work on that, inserting those 2 little notes. But I'm going to be walking them around. So... And again, nothing, but I'm thinking of that. And then the more and more you do that, the more it becomes second nature, and it doesn't sound like you're thinking about that idea. All right, so I real quickly just wanted to talk about how I begin to incorporate this into my playing. Some of you might struggle with this, like you'll learn the idea, but you'll have a hard time actually inserting it into your own playing. And I do this in kind of a methodical kind of manner. I take it really slow, usually practice with a metronome or something, and I'll begin by playing just A minor pentatonic stuff, and I'll just phrase with it, just do some simple phrases. And then when I get into the position where that lick begins, then I'll throw that lick in. And I'll just throw kind of that beginning portion of it. And then I'll try and work out of it seamlessly too. And I'll show you how it may not work sometimes, or it may not sound great. And then I go back and maybe if I played one note that didn't work, I'll try and do the same thing, but try and fix that note. And it's a progression, and eventually it becomes easier and easier to do. Now, this might not work for everybody. This is my method, and I just wanted to share it with some people because maybe they're not sure where to get started with this. So, Again, I'll take it really slowly, and I'll just do A minor pentatonic phrasing. Now that second section was... that was throwing in that second part of the phrase. So the beginning I was just phrasing a little bit. Now right there, I inserted melodic minor, which is basically playing the pentatonic scale, throwing in that ninth every once in a while. And instead of playing that flat 7, you throw in the major 7. And that gets that little tonality difference. Throwing that note in there. So you don't actually even have to do the lick, but you're just throwing in certain tonalities of melodic minor. But again, you're trying to work in and out of that lick as smoothly as possible. And I'll just work on that for maybe an hour with a backing track or with a metronome, and I'll really just try and work in, again, just this beginning of the lick. Or maybe I'll go even a little further. Then that'll end it. Or I'll work in that one section where it's... So I threw that in a couple times there. Again, nothing great, but it's developing the comfort level of throwing this idea in with just basic pentatonic phrasing. Because that's what you want to do. You want to make it sound like it's not insert here, insert there. So I hope that helped a little bit. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and jam over a backing track and show you the same technique of doing minor pentatonic, mixing in this lick as well as I can at this point. And this backing track is from Jam Track Central. It's from their Total Blues 2 package. It's the Robert Cray track, a really cool track. All their jam tracks are pretty awesome. And I will put a link down below in the description where you can go to get this backing track, and this package is really cool. This Total Blues 2. Actually, both of them are really cool. So I would suggest picking those up if you get a chance, because they're great tracks to jam over. In fact, this is one of my favorite, this Robert Cray one. So I will try and do my best with working this in over that track, and I hope you like it. I hope you understand the concepts and the ideas, and I hope you enjoyed that lesson. Check out guitarbreakdown.com, and if you like this, definitely click on like and subscribe and everything. Let us know that you really want to see more of these videos. And I don't think I mentioned at the very beginning, but I will put the link to this thing that Guthrie plays, the clinic lesson thing that's on YouTube, and I'll put the time code in there where he plays this lick. So again, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next lesson. Thanks.